Hey, what is going on, SMT Nation? It's your boy, the SMT. We're going to take a look at the Root Metrics preliminary midway point of half 1 2020. This is a report that Root Metrics puts together every half, testing, the T-Mobile network, the Verizon network, the AT&T network, looking at measures and metrics of network excellence and quality. And what they do is, without any type of influence, they try to give us, as customers, the most accurate and most real-world understanding of how these networks perform in the tested markets. In my experience, it has been the most accurate for a long time. The reason I say that is I think their methodology is solid. I think their consistency and the ways that they do test and they use their devices and the way that they report, everything seems to make sense and everything seems to work. And when I look at the results in markets that I've tested, things align quite nicely. So the takeaway from the preliminary report, meaning when I go to the website and I access the scores and the metrics, thus far, up until March of 2021, we've got some key findings that I want to cover with you guys in today's video. So a couple of takeaways when I look at the initial preliminary reports is Verizon Wireless is losing grip on their network dominance. In terms of the excellence of network performance, they still remain a very strong competitor, but their stranglehold that they've had on Root Metrics appears to be loosening. This is indicative that AT&T and T-Mobile are indeed improving greatly, and they are starting to win more awards. So it looks like there are about 51 preliminary markets at the halfway point of, half 1 2021 Root Metrics. Verizon took, I think, about 41 or 42 of those markets. AT&T took 38, and T-Mobile took 6 or 7. So Verizon Wireless is still dominant, but AT&T is indeed closing the excellence gap. And I think also with T-Mobile kind of coming in and winning some of these Root awards, I think it's showing that their capacity upgrades, and not just the capacity, but also just giving these tower sites upgrades to allow for better calling, better data performance, increased speeds, areas where they struggled with before, they were starting to really address those things. So when I look at the numbers, and I did a full breakdown of this yesterday on the podcast, I'll go ahead and link the podcast in the description box of this video. I'll put an end card at the end too if you want to watch it. It's really a pretty deep dive in it. In my experience, and looking at a lot of these markets and looking at the Root scores, Verizon is still very, very good. But what we're noticing is that there's less of a disparity. There's, a reason to believe that AT&T is absolutely right there. And it makes sense. AT&T has made huge gains and made huge progress and improvements by upgrading tower sites at an incredible level, doing Band 14 upgrades through the FirstNet contract, and then also not just doing Band 14 at those times, but also modernizing the tower sites, backhaul upgrades, so improving the fiber optic capacity, and then also doing Band 30 upgrades. They're addressing all their needs on this one-touch approach where when they do the Band 14 upgrades, they do everything else too, and it's showing. T-Mobile also incredibly improved. They're doing huge things, and the reason I say that is because they were not very competitive in Root Metrics in previous halves and years. I think by the end of the year, we're probably going to see T-Mobile with something like 20 markets where they're number one or shared for number one. So they're currently at like 6 or 7. I think they're going to end up closer to that 20 mark. Who knows? Maybe even beyond 20. That's how improved the T-Mobile network is. So I think if I was to predict, how does this break down by the end of the year? How many, number one markets does, Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile have? I think that the Verizon and AT&T is going to be really, really close. I think they're going to have a lot of shared markets, and I also think there's going to be more where AT&T is number one. So maybe something like, 30 or so for Verizon, maybe 30 or so for like AT&T, and then let's get T-Mobile in there to get somewhere around 20 or so markets where they're number one. I really do think so. Do keep in mind that this is probably only at least half of the markets that they're testing on this initial preliminary report. So not all markets are in, not all the testing is done. They'll have over 100 markets tested by the end of this thing. So in terms of my predictions, why do I believe that this is going to happen? Why do I think, or why do I predict that AT&T is going to gain more first place finishes and T-Mobile is going to get more first place finishes? And the reason I say this is based on the trends, based on what I'm seeing from the data. Many markets right now where Verizon is number one, AT&T and T-Mobile are still very, very close there. So while they are number two or number three in those markets, the disparity is very small. Like Verizon's 99 and AT&T is 97. Or Verizon is 99 and AT&T is 98. So I think AT&T can get there very easily. And the same thing with T-Mobile. They've got a lot of scores around like 97.3 and 96.9. It won't take that much for them to get into the territory where they're sharing first place finishes with AT&T and Verizon, or possibly surpassing them. So there's room to do that. I want to take a look at some of the markets that I analyzed, specifically pulling up some of those markets. So the first one, we have the central universe of the cellular marketplaces, CLE. Let's look at Cleveland. Verizon a 99.2 rating, AT&T the same, and then T-Mobile with 97.9. There's not much of a difference there. They are very close. In fact, one could argue you wouldn't have to choose your carrier based on performance in the CLE. It looks like everybody's pretty close. Also throw in the fact that Verizon rated a 99.3 last half. So they went from a 99.3 to a 99.2, so very consistent. AT&T, which now is scoring a 99.2, last half 98.9, so they've improved. And then T-Mobile, who scored a 96.6 last half, now scoring a 97.9. So the most improved carrier in the CLE, based on root metrics, is T-Mobile. Very good to see. You look at, let's look at some other cities. Columbus, Ohio, all carriers within 0.3 of the root score points. So their algorithm, their rating system, you wouldn't have to choose your carrier based on performance in Columbus, Ohio. That's the end game. That's where we want to be as consumers. Can I choose my carrier for something other than performance, pricing, and other things? Let's take a look at Las Vegas, Nevada, home to Carlos Aztec, and look at his, root score reports. AT&T 98.6, or 98.5, Verizon 97.7, T-Mobile 96.5. I remember looking at Las Vegas root scores previously, and they were not very good. It looks like T-Mobile has improved tremendously in Las Vegas, and AT&T has surpassed Verizon as the top performer over the course of the last year, and they're holding on to that lead. All right, if I take a look at some other particular markets, here's another one, Denver, Colorado. Verizon, 98.6. AT&T, 98.4. T-Mobile, 97.6. Now, that may not seem like much, but the last time I checked the scores for T-Mobile in Denver, Colorado, they had a 43 or a 33 score. So they've improved the Denver performance in a big way, right? So they're showing incredible gains in a lot of key markets. So previously, T-Mobile struggled in call performance in the CLE. They struggled with network accessibility. They have improved those metrics in a big way, and it's boosted their score, and it closed the root score, the root rating gap. When I look at network accessibility for the CLE, we've got AT&T at 97.6, 97.8 in two halves in a row. They're very consistent. Verizon had a 97.9 accessibility last half. Now it's 94.3. So their network performance is possibly suspect. All right. And then one more thing, we've got T-Mobile coming in with a 93.3 last half, now a 93.8. So they're showing great improvements. So this has been kind of long-winded, but I do want to wrap things up with a couple of things. As improved as T-Mobile is, they still have the most, troubled areas. All right, there's still places where they score low 90s where their competitors don't. There's still places where they score in the 80s and their competitors do not. They still have troubled areas where they're scoring in the 30s and 40s. No other carriers are doing this. Many of these troubled areas are in California. I'm going to go ahead and predict, due to the CPUC, the California Public Utilities Commission merger agreements, I'm going to go ahead and predict that T-Mobile will probably not reach these metrics. In fact, there's just no way and no how. They're probably going to end up taking some fines here, reaching some kind of new agreement or something with the CPUC. It's just too difficult. They're playing from too far behind. I don't think they'll be able to reach them. Hopefully they do improve, but it's not realistic to get those speeds up to 300 megabits per second based on how poorly they're performing in data in those places. Also, when I look at some more of these takeaways, AT&T is gaining more root score awards. Verizon will probably continue to get more awards, but definitely not as dominant as they used to be. And I think T-Mobile's on their way to getting more and more of these awards. So my takeaways to wrap this all up: shared awards for AT&T and Verizon is very prevalent. T-Mobile is continuing to improve, gaining award space. Also, this is really, really good for wireless customers. You can pick your carrier now based on anything other than performance. So perks, pricing, features, value, you don't have to pick based on performance. They're all performing well based on this report. And the last thing I want to say, let's take a look at what Neville Ray, Mike Sievert, and T-Mobile executives have been saying for many years, going back to the John Legere era. They've always said that Root Metrics has been paid off by Verizon. Well, they're going to have to eat crow because apparently that is not the case. T-Mobile is now winning Root Awards. They're going to have to eat crow here because if Verizon is paying to lose, that would make absolutely no sense because now T-Mobile is winning some awards and AT&T is also winning awards. So unfortunately, Neville Ray, Mike Sievert, the executives at the T-Mobile team, they're going to have to eat crow and probably just shut up and stop saying those things because apparently it was just that their network sucked and now their network does not suck. Now their network is good. Now the network is competitive. Let me know what you think in the comment section below, what you think of these reports. Thanks for watching, and I'm out. Thank you for taking this opportunity to watch the SMT YouTube channel. If you appreciated this video, give it a like and a share to all your favorite social media platforms. Thank you in advance for that. Also, check out some of the links in the description box. We have the SMT Patreon page. We also have the Twitter handle at SneedTech. And do check out the audio-only podcast available on all the major podcast platforms. And if you are new, have not subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and activate the bell notification icon so you never miss an upload from the SMT. We'll catch you on the next video. Peace.